Okay, well, I'm going to try and squeeze this. I got 10 minutes, right? Okay, there's a lot going on here. Just to quickly introduce myself, this is a project that stems out of some work I've been doing for about 20 years in Toronto. I work with the Indigenous community in the urban setting in Toronto, and wrote my dissertation about community organizing amongst Indigenous people in the city. And this emerges from that work, and I've continued to be involved in the community, although I work on some different topics now. The first thing I want to note is that this is a collective endeavor, and there is a community committee that oversees this organization called First Story Toronto that was formerly known as the Toronto Native Community History Project. And there are probably 100 people involved, but I would like to acknowledge the people who are on this screen as my co-authors, Amber Sandy, Karen Belanger, Victoria Freeman, and John Johnson, who put together these slides with me. So first story, I'm going to be talking about this app that we created. This is the description that we use for the app, and you'll note it says official description because part of what I want to talk about today is all of the various kind of politics of representation and content and issues that can come up in the creation of something like this. So that's our logo up there, and a mobile app exploring the Aboriginal history of Toronto. But one of the very first things that came up in doing this is that we don't want the representation of Indigenous people in Toronto to just be about the past. It's a very vibrant, live community, lots of things going on, and so we incorporated that into the app as well, even though it starts from this kind of historical perspective. So we talk about how it's interactive, it's based on the map, and obviously you'll probably already can tell I'm not a tech person whatsoever. I'm about the content. I couldn't tell you about how the app, what the technology is. But we are using oral histories, video, archival documents, and various other kinds of media to put this together. It's a collaboration, as I said, between First Story, and our partner is the Center for Community Mapping, based at the University of Waterloo. And their mission is to do this kind of stuff with communities, help develop these kinds of technologies. And we met them actually because they were working with the Mississaugas of New Credit on their land claim, which is a land claim on the city of Toronto, which they settled in 2010 for $145 million. And so that this group helped them in mapping out their connections and history to the city. So our organization, First Story, is based at the Native Canadian Centre of Toronto, established in 1962. It's the oldest Native community organization in the city. Does a lot of stuff, community events, cultural events, social services. Just a little bit about the community itself. Probably 70 to 80,000 Indigenous people in the city. It's a very diverse community, both in terms of culture as well as linguistically and economically as well. And there's not like a lot of visual representation of Indigenous people in the city. There's no neighborhood or something like that. It's seen largely through these social service organizations, cultural organizations. Also want to point out where Toronto is in relation to the Great Lakes and how important water is, and this very strategic location historically in terms of thinking about where we are in the center of this huge set of intricate network of highways of water, and why Toronto is such an important place, both for Indigenous people and beyond. But historically, we have at least Wendat Hurons, Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabeg, all laying claims as this place as part of their traditional territory. Archaeological representations. I can't get into the details of this little tidbit, but you can ask about it later if you want. This is just a map of archaeological sites on the city that are part of the app. Treaty relations and the basis for how I mentioned the Mississaugas of the New Credit at the top. They were seen as the owners of this place, if you will, when Europeans wanted to treat with Native Americans for possession of the land. And so there's that history, important Native people in that history, the economic history of the area. but again, a kind of a landscape that is very difficult to represent all of this when it's buried under all of this concrete and steel. Nonetheless, as I said, a very vibrant contemporary community. Here's a mural that's on the side of one of the social service organizations. And I'll skip over this, but want to quickly get to the app itself. But these are just some of the things that are in our archive. Photographs, newspaper collection, oral histories, and we have a couple of active projects where we're continuing to collect oral histories, working with an artifact collection that we have. And one of the things we've been doing for 20 years is a bus tour of the city from the Indigenous perspective. Very popular, and so basically the app is an adaptation of the bus tour. So it's available in iTunes and Google Play, and launched about 3 years ago. And as I said earlier, community events as well as historical points. This is kind of a screenshot of what it looks like, and then Thomas, I don't know if we want to switch over. I'll just end off by maybe seeing if I can show it to you live, what it looks like. Okay. Cool. Okay, so I guess that's the best focus we can get. Oh, that's good there. Yeah. All right. And so you can search by events or content or everything. I'm just going to give you a quick example. Is this, I don't know if you'll be able to hear the sound though, right? Probably not. Forgot about sound. But one example is there's an active group doing street renaming in Indigenous languages. And so here's an example of reclaiming, renaming Queen Street in Toronto. If any of you have been there, and if you haven't, I highly suggest, of course, you take a trip to Toronto. It's only a 4-hour drive, 4.5-hour drive. But basically, it'll pull up a picture of what we're talking about, probably some narrative about the site. And so if you're standing on the corner of Queen and College, you can learn something about the Indigenous history or Indigenous presence of where you're standing in the city with this app. And in this particular case, it connects to an audio, which you probably won't be able to hear, but you can see at least what it looks like. It connects you to be able to learn how to pronounce this word that is in the Anishinaabe language. In this case, Ogama Mikana.
Ogima, Ogima. Noun, animate. Chief, a boss, a leader. Mikana, Mikana. Noun, inanimate. A road, a trail.
Okay. So I think I'll end there. I had some questions. We don't need to switch back, and everything might be a little too complicated, but I have some discussion questions in case you don't have enough of them for me. Thank you.